Hello everybody, it's Wyvern here with a video to discuss the upcoming DLC for Total War Warhammer 2, the Queen and the Crone. And this is definitely quite some exciting news. There's a whole bunch of additional FAQ that's been released and some additional info and the other updates we'll be getting alongside them, which I want to go over in this video as well. But regardless, quickly jumping into the DLC first and foremost, looks pretty awesome. There's a lot of good about it. I do have a few caveats and complaints, so I'll be going over the whole DLC, going through everything, doing some speculation, making my own little commentary, throwing in my 2 cents, and I want to see what you guys want to think as well. So be sure to leave your comments down below if you have any opinions you'd like to share, any thoughts on what we're getting here. So regardless of the pictures, I'm not going to go over the trailer. You can watch that. I'll post a link to it down below. But we do get a few images here, which are meant as wallpapers, I do believe, but nonetheless, they're not too informative as far as what we're getting goes. But here you can see we are getting some tree units for the High Elves, at least for Alariel's faction, for Avalorn. So you can see Tree Men there, Dryad down there. Handmaiden over here on a horse. Sisters of Avalorn, so some elite magic archers, and of course Alariel herself with her huge ponytail. Look at that, so fancy. But you get a fancy High Elf there, and it's pretty cool. We also do get Helbron, the hag, and you can see, look at that, an ugly dark elf. She's definitely a bit creepy and definitely a bit spooky. We'll definitely see. There's not much else to see here though. There's this is just the slaughter, I think, down here. Though those might also just be vanilla witch elves. It's kind of hard to tell. Yeah. Over here you can see the new Supreme Sorceress Lord that the Arc Elves are getting. So basically just a sorceress with more mount options and probably better magic abilities, and should definitely be pretty cool as a Lord choice. It's often great to have a caster, especially if she's decent in combat, which might be a possibility with her. Finally, of course, just a little bit of a overarching view here of a fight going down between some, as far as I'm aware, these are High Elves over here and some Dark Elves attacking them. So cool stuff, but not really all that informative, but still nice to see. Regardless, Queen and the Crone has been kind of speculated for a while. A lot of YouTubers were talking about it way back, as far as back as as basically Warhammer 2's release, maybe as far back as September or October. So, and they were right. It turns out this wasn't the name of the pack. This was the right down to the name and the contained lords. So regardless, we do get some new quest chains, some magic items, some skill trees, of course, with those 2 legendary lords. We do get, I'm not sure my mouse is being stupid there, but we get some new campaign mechanics and objectives, a new hero type for High Elves, new lord type for Dark Elves. It's also worth noting there's going to be a free LC coming alongside this for the High Elves. Surprisingly, it was expected to be Lizard Men. Turns out it's not, but we'll go over that in a bit after going through the main DLC here. Some new battlefield units for both races, 16 regiments of renown, so a good count there. I do believe more than the Tomb Kings got, so definitely should be pretty cool. Going through, there is some little fluff here, nothing too important. We do get, however, an overview of Alariel, who does seem to be pretty cool. She's basically a caster lord. Supposedly has she supposedly gets debuffed if there's chaos nearby. I'm not entirely sure how this is going to work. She's subject to the mortal world's torment. Chaos seeps into the world, her battlefield powers wane. So I don't know if this means that if chaos corruption is too high, if there's nearby chaos armies, anything like that, if that debuffs her in combat, or if that debuffs her whole faction, there's a lot that this could mean. So it's rather difficult to tell what exactly this means. Alariel is also a mixed lore caster, which I'm not too happy about. Personally, I wish they would just make casters the way they did Manfred, where you get both full lores and can choose how to spec them. But that's not what we got. Tough luck. She can embark on, but honestly, she does have Lore of Life and Lore of High, so those are both pretty solid lores. If we get good spells from both of them, this could be a really powerful combo. You could get something like Earthblood, Apotheosis, Regrowth, Tempest, Arcane Unforging, or something like that. I don't know. But some combo like that, and this could be an awesome setup. You could also get something like Awakening of the Wood, Shield of Thorns, and the Hand of the Gods, or not the Hand of the Gods, but the blessing that gives you plus 26 melee attack, and then the fire convocation, which would be a pretty trashy deal. So it really depends on what we get. I'm not entirely sure, but we're definitely going to see. She does get a few mount options, nothing too fancy. Elven Steed, Barded Steed, and a Great Eagle, but the Great Eagle is very useful as a support lord. You generally want to stay out of trouble, and that could help you do that. It could help her skirmish around, help her be where she needs to be on the battlefield, help her support where needed. She also does get access, much like Arkan gets access to a handful of Vampire Counts units, she gets access to a handful of Wood Elf units, Dryads, Treekin, Treemen. As cool as this is, I don't think it's that useful. Honestly, I think it's kind of mediocre. Unless you get access to these guys really easily. Shrieking and Treeman are fairly useless for high elves, I think. Um, Treekin fulfill a role that the high elves really don't need filled. If you need to hold your ground, if you just need to defend yourself, you've already got Phoenix Guard, you've got Lothran Seaguard, you've got Spearman, all of which can hold, maybe if not as well as the Tree Man, pretty similarly. So you don't really need additional holding power as the high elves. They're already well kitted out for that. And a Tree Man, if you need a large single monster that causes fear and terror, you've got dragons, you've got phoenixes, and both of those are much more offensive oriented. And honestly, some of the bigger dragons basically have better stats in all areas than a Tree Man. So once again, not really too impressed. Not really too not really getting my hopes up too high. It could be a bit more useful in quick match though, so that's definitely something to keep in mind. Dryads though, I think are the only really useful unit here because high elves don't have good offensive infantry in the early game. They're basically stuck relying on spears and archers to win all their games, and dryads would give you an additional option. If you need to win a siege, you can storm the walls with dryads. If you want to go with a more offense-minded army, you could have a handful of archers and a bunch of dryads to just overwhelm your opponent in melee, similar to what Durthu does currently in his early game. So definitely some cool stuff there. She does get a unique campaign mechanic apparently called Defenders of Ulthuan. So I'm not entirely sure how this one works. If it just means if I don't know if it could mean that just defending Ulthuan itself. It could mean defending it could apply to just your provinces. If you control the whole province, you get benefits. If you don't control, you get disadvantages. It could mean that if you control all of Ulthuan, you get benefits. Whereas if you have enemies on Ulthuan, then you start getting disadvantages. I'm not entirely sure what this could mean, but we'll definitely see as more numbers come out. So we'll see what this Defender of Ulthuan trait does. She also gets access to unique right. I'm not sure if this is going to be a 5th right or a replacement for one of the existing 4 rights for her. But this right seems to provide benefits to Handmaidens, Sisters of Avalor, and Dryads. What those benefits are, it doesn't say. It could be replenishment, could be better combat stats, it could be better recruiting rank, could be a lower recruiting cost, upkeep, whatever. I don't know, but it could be cool, it could be bad. We'll see what it does. Could also depend on the cost of the of the right as well. Moving on to the Dark Elves, they are getting, and I should have mentioned, I suppose, Alariel is starting in Avalorn, so she's going to start in Northern Ulthuan, which is pretty awesome because it does mean that hopefully Tyrion will get hopefully Tyrion won't just dominate Ulthuan immediately and spiral out of control. It could also add a cool starting position if you're trying to do co-op with High Elves, because currently you're stuck doing Teclis and Tyrion, which, given their disparate starting positions, is really annoying and difficult to play. But could definitely be pretty cool there. Then we do get Hellebron, who's starting in a jam-packed area already. She's starting at Harkeneth, where she's going to be competing, at least to an extent, with Tretch, Malekith, Marathi, and Katep for territory. This is already a very jam-packed, as far as Legendary Lords go, area. But she does look pretty cool. She's going to be a combat-oriented lord. Obviously, she's basically just a better death hag, as far as I'm aware. She does get a cool little ability here, the Death Knight, where she can expend slaves, apparently, to keep her power strong. I'm not sure, once again, if this will be a global sort of faction-wide debuff if she doesn't do this, or if it's going to be a faction-wide buff, or if it just affects her specifically, which could affect how good this is. Since if you don't hold this, it starts having a detrimental effect on Hellebron. But like I said, I don't know what this means. There's a lot of ways to take this. But you also do get a free Dark Elf army, apparently, so probably similar to a Wa that goes on a blood voyage. This could be good, could be not so good. The Wa's currently kind of suck, so if it works like the Wa's for the Greenskins, where it fails, where your Dark Elf 20 stack flunks against a 6 local 6 stack or whatever of Skaven, you might not find this very useful. But it could also be really good, so we'll obviously see. She gets massive upkeep reductions to Witch Elves, Harkins, Executioners, and Sisters of Slaughter. I don't know if this is for her army, in which case it's probably going to be about 50%, like what we see on Krokgar or Mazdamundi for their special units, or it could just be a global faction-wide drop, so 10 to 20%. Given these are units you're going to be fielding at least some number, it's definitely going to be useful. It just kind of depends how much. She also has a unique skill tree for these guys, so that could also be really cool. Though obviously, once again, we have to wait to see what this skill tree will do. She does get a twin legendary weapon, so I assume much like Malekith, or much like Marathi's Heartrender, and what is it, Heartrender Darksword, I think. So we'll see what these do. Could be pretty cool. Could not be. She does have 3 mount options: a Dark Steed, Cauldron of Blood, and a Manticore. As a melee-oriented hero, wow, that was oops. But as a melee-oriented hero, Manticore is not that good of a combat unit or of a combat mount. It doesn't give you AP. It does give you Fear and Terror, but so does the Cauldron of Blood. I actually think she might be better off on a Cauldron of Blood, just because you get those AOE buffs and debuffs for your army and for your enemies. You're pretty tanky, good against infantry. I'm not. We'll see. I don't know if it is, but it could be better than the Manticore for sure, I think. Helbron also gets a unique right. Once again, I'm not sure if this is going to be a 5th or a replacement for the 4th. Sacrifice the Drakira, which gives bonuses when fighting High Elves and reduces your Diplo relations with High Elves, which is irrelevant in my opinion. But it gives you rank bonuses to both Death Hags and Witch Elf units, which is pretty cool. We'll see. This could be very. It's going to be a very niche right, but most of the rights are currently. It's mostly a toss-up on whether or not this is going to be. It's going to be niche, right? But it's going to be a bit of a toss-up if it's a. It's going to be a bit of a toss-up if it's a useful right or not. We'll see. It also depends on cost a little bit. The right does bring bonuses when fighting High Elves. We'll see what those are. Could be significant. Could be very useful. Rank bonuses to Death Hags and Witch Elves if you want to recruit a bunch of them in a short time could also be pretty good. Moving on to unique units. This is where I'm a little disappointed with this DLC. We'll kind of see how this plays out. But this is, and I'm going to go over why after going through the units here, because it actually has nothing to do with the units that are the new stuff we're getting. As far as its stats or its gameplay or anything like that, it's actually rather to what we're not getting. But going over real quickly, we do get Sisters of Avalorn and Shadow Warriors for Alariel. Personally, or the High Elves. Personally, I think neither of these two units are that important for the High Elves. Sisters of Avalorn, there has been some speculation that their missiles are armor piercing, in which case they could be really good for High Elves. But here it only says they're dual role combatants with magical and flaming attacks. This will be useful against regen units. This will be good against undead with their ethereal units. As some of you guys might have seen some of my videos, I spam ethereal units and High Elves struggle to beat it. So against that sort of stuff, it'll be good. But honestly, outside of that specific niche, I don't think they're honestly that useful. You're going to be better off, even if these guys have melee stats comparable to Shades. In most situations, I think you'd be better off, if you want to go with elite archers, you're going to be better off bringing Lothran Seaguard, because that charge defense against large and the spears are pretty good. But we'll definitely see. These could be somewhat useful. They're definitely going to be somewhat niche, but if they bring armor piercing to the table, they're going to be amazing and really crucial, I think, for High Elves. Shadow Warriors, I think, fill a completely. They're cool. They're basically High Elf scouts, or High Elf version of the Wood Elf Scout. With probably better melee stats, and you can see in their stats, it's Vanguard Deploy, Stalk, Long Range, Master Ambusher. They're basically scouts. Unfortunately, I don't think they're going to be that useful for the High Elves. Like I said, they feel a niche that the High Elves don't really need filled. It will open up some additional, I think, options if you want to go with a more skirmish-heavy build for the High Elves, but at the same time, I just don't see it. Usually with your High Elves, you're playing a pretty static or pretty straight, classic game. You're going to line up your archers behind your spears or white lions or whatever, and march your front line forward and have your archers pepper the enemy from safety. Why you would bring Shadow Warriors in that sort of case is I don't really know. If you're going to be skirmishing, you already have Illyrian Reavers, which are probably going to be more competitive in a lot of cases, but we'll definitely see. I think they're a cool unit. I'm just not, and I do like their lore a lot actually, but I'm not sure how useful they're actually going to be for the High Elves. For the Dark Elves, this is where things I think get a little more interesting and definitely a bit more useful. Sisters of Slaughter, which are basically just witch elves with whips, they do poison rather than Madness of Cain. They do cause fear, which is actually surprisingly useful. Dark Elves don't have much that causes fear. The units that do cause fear are units that are generally not brought, like the different sorts of Cold One Knights and Cold One units, or the Cauldrons of Blood, or the Hydras. You only really see dragons a good amount, so the options that they have are just not that great. So having a unit that can cause fear in the front line could definitely be cool. They do get the Murderous Mastery, and they have an ability that triggers when they're losing in melee, so much like the Flagellant's Strength of the Penitent, which I'm not entirely sure what it's going to do, but the Trial of the Blades will improve them when they're losing in melee. So that could be very useful at making them fight back a little harder, dish out some more hurt before they die, maybe give them better defensive stats. We'll see what it does, but really pretty cool. They also get Doomfire Warlocks, which a lot of people were hyped for. These guys, of course, hopefully will even things out for the currently trashy Dark Elf Cavalry. A fast elite magic cav with magic and poisonous, I can't even speak, with magical and poisonous attacks in melee. They're subject to murderous prowess as usual, but the magic and poisonous attacks could be really useful against some targets. And depending on, I don't know if they'll get physical resistance, but if they do, they could be really good against units like Dragon Princes, for example, or against units like the Sisters of the Thorn. So we'll definitely see. These guys could be a nasty piece of work. They also do get 2 bounce spells, Soul Blight and Lesser Doom Bolt, which is pretty awesome because Soul Blight provides a great debuff, and Lesser Doom Bolt, well, probably not that great. Could help you snipe down, say, monsters or maybe blobs and units like that pretty effectively. Then there are some unique heroes and lords. You get a unique hero for Alariel, which is the Handmaiden. So basically a Waywatcher with some mount options and probably some better global buffs, but no stalk, less combat and harassment oriented. So she could be pretty cool. We'll see. Once again, I'm not sure this is really a unit that High Elves need that much, but it could still be pretty cool. You also do get Supreme Sorceress for Hellbrand, which I think is going to be really pretty awesome. She's going to be a new caster lord that gets the full range of mount options except Cold One Chariots. For the Dark Elves, you get everything from Dark Steed through Black Dragon. So really pretty potent. They're probably going to be decent in melee. And stacked on top of that, she gets access to Lore of Death. All the usual Dark Elf lores, Lore of Beast, which is okay, but Lore of Death is going to be huge because there are some spells in there that the Dark Elves can really make massive use out of. Now, I also do want to mention a few things. There's a new free DLC coming out alongside this, which is actually for the High Elves. It was speculated to be for the Lizardmen, but it's going to be a High Elf DLC with Alith Anar, which I'll discuss in a little bit as we get to the FAQ section of this. But it should be pretty cool, but we are not getting certain units. This is where I'm disappointed in this. Where there's no mention of... Now, I didn't expect... For example, a lot of people were hoping for the Lothran Skycutter. I honestly wasn't expecting that. The animations on that would be incredibly difficult, even if it did have a good place in the High Elf roster. I just figured it would be really difficult to implement. But the fact that we're not getting a White Lion Chariot, and that we're not getting the Charybdis, is actually really rather disappointing in my mind. That's something I figured we would get. In previous Lord packs, we did get more units than we got here. And a lot of the assets for those units, for White Lion Chariots and for the Charybdis, are already there. The Charybdis is basically just a slightly redone Hydra with different heads. And then the White Lion Chariot is basically just a chariot with some white lines thrown in the back. You'd have to animate some lines, I guess. But honestly, you could get the animations for those out of probably one of the Sphinxes. So I don't mean to, or even the Hounds or something like that. You could easily get the animations for those. So that's actually something that disappoints me a bit. I was expecting those 2 units in here, and I'm surprised they're not here. Maybe they're saving them for a free DLC down the road. Maybe they're saving them for additional DLC, which doesn't seem likely, but you never know. So we'll definitely see it. But that's one of the things that disappoints me in the DLC. Everything else about it, I think, is actually pretty good. So we'll keep going. But that was the one disappointment. So going into Regiments of Renown, and these I think could be some game changers in here. Some not so game changers, but let's just jump in. 8 per faction here, I do believe. We do get the Scions of Mathlin, so a Spearman with an aura that applies a ward save, which I don't know how much it's going to be. Assuming it's similar to the Phoenix ward save, 11%. Still going to be decent at just helping units hold up, especially if you're bringing a spear-heavy front line to maximize your shooting. It's going to be very useful at keeping these guys intact. They also do get Expert Charge Defense, so they can... hold their ground a little longer. They can tank through that charge. Oftentimes, High Elf Spears especially will get charged, and because the charge bonus helps their opponents overwhelm them really quickly, their HP pool drops, they lose martial prowess, and then they're in a terrible spot. We do get the Pure Main Company, which is White Lions of Craze with Sunder Armor. Sunder Armor, incredibly useful to help the High Elf Archers do more damage. Guardian, not so useful because you don't have many lords that you'll be using on foot as the High Elves, and I don't think that's about to change. I don't think we're about to see a meta where people bring Tyrion on foot or something like that. Maybe it can help if you're bringing a Lore Master of Hoth, but that's really about it. Then we do have the Keepers of the Flame, which are Phoenix Guard, and these guys do have magic attacks, which could be decent against some targets, useless against others. or honestly against most targets. But you also do get Mark of Assyrian, where entities will burst into flames upon death and deal damage to nearby enemies. I'm not sure if this affects single models in a unit, where they explode and damage other units in the unit, or if this means that once the whole unit gets wiped, there's an explosion that damages nearby enemies. Given that it's hard to wipe entire units in the game unless you're fighting undead, because usually you'll see routes, I suspect it's going to be a per model basis, but could definitely be cool. Could also be fairly useless depending on how much damage it is. Could also be overpowered as all heck. We'll definitely see. The Storm Riders, which are unique to Loth and Seaguard, unshielded variant as far as this shows. They cause fear. Not that useful. I think High Elves do generally bring dragons and units that cause fear already. But they do get Vanguard deploy. Once again, this is not this is once again not that useful because you were getting Shadow, like, if you're going for Vanguard deploy, you're probably going to bring Shadow Warriors who can fire 360. Loth and Seaguard can't fire 360. At least it isn't mentioned here. So these guys have that unique thing. So they're kind of, these guys basically seem to be similar to Glade Guard with Vanguard deploy and fear. But these two traits are not that useful unless you need to beat off an attack from some backline storming light cav, in which fear might help. But the Vanguard and Cause Fear aren't too useful. Neither is Firewall's moving here. So I think this is actually a pretty lackluster unit. Maybe it could be good for stiffening up your Shadow Warriors. If you Vanguard deploy your Shadow Warriors, you can have a unit up front with a bonus against large. So maybe for that it'll be good. Then we do get the Grey, some unique Shadow Warriors with a low Shroud ability. This is what I do believe. This is what the Regiment of Renowned War Dancers for the Wood Elves have. So stealth or improved stealth in their case, and increased speed. So definitely could be really useful to kite and flight. They also have snipe, which is ridiculous. This could be incredibly powerful. They can fire and remain hidden. That's absolutely crazy. It could definitely let you position in a great way and then get some crazy damage out. Then we do have the Everqueen's Court Guard, which are Sisters of Avalorn with Encourage, and the Banner of Avalorn ability, which increases Winds of Magic recharge rate. This could be incredibly useful, especially if the Sisters of Avalorn are a reasonably competitive unit at baseline. Encourage I don't think is that great because High Elves don't really need Encourage, but this increase to Winds of Magic could be useful for a faction that's very magic dependent. Then we do have the Fireborn Dragon Princes with bonus versus large. Fire attacks basically useless. That's whatever. Bonus versus large, though, depending on how big that bonus versus large is, could be ludicrous. It can make these guys competitive with everything up to and including Demigris, though. Obviously, we'll see. But this could make them very competitive. It could also make them, they might just not be that much better. But I assume this could be a huge boost. Because right now, High Elves have major issues with dealing with large, and this could really help counteract that. Then we do have Heralds of the Wind, which is the final High Elf unit here. Illyrian Reavers with bows with superior melee stats and increased speed. The increased speed's interesting. That could be rather troublesome to deal with. Superior melee stats, these guys already have good melee stats, so this could make them like really, really solid. We'll see, obviously. We'll see, but given that Illyrian Reaver bows are already really hard to counter for a lot of factions, this could make them incredibly powerful. We'll definitely see. Then for the Regiments of Renown for the Dark Elves, we do have, we can start off with the Helibrani, Dread Spears with Poison and Expert Charge Defense. I think this is actually might be more useful than the High Elf version of the Spears. Expert Charge Defense, once again, helping you hold out a little better on the charge. Poison attacks, though, helping make it so that a unit can't just clobber you to death very quickly. Because obviously the Spears probably aren't going to be doing that much damage, but Poison can definitely help. Just help them hold out. Witch Elves, Sisters of the Stinging Doom, it cause terror. Like I said before, it's actually pretty hard for the Dark Elves to bring good sources of terror to the field, so this could be immensely useful, because it's a source of terror that isn't stupid and rampaged and rampage prone, or easy to shut down with shooting. Blades of the Blood Queen, so Hargoneth Executioners with Guardian. Once again, I don't think this is that useful. Maybe if you're bringing a Death Hag, maybe if you're bringing a Canine Assassin. I guess it does have a niche. If you bring a Cauldron of Blood, it could be really good, but otherwise not that good. But Frenzy on Executioners is going to be awesome, so definitely some good stuff. This unit seems to be absolutely ludicrous. Bolt Fiends, shielded Dark Shards with Shield Breaker and extra range, because that's what we needed. Dark Shards with Shield Breaker and extra range. Absolutely ridiculous. This means that now, even if you're, say, Chaos, you bring some armored, you bring some Chosen or some Chaos Warriors with shields to block enemy shooting. Forget it. You're going to get smushed by after volley of shooting. Additional range, also crazy on Dark Shards. Dark Shards don't have great range, but it's also not terrible range. So honestly, if they're bumped up to like 150 or 160, these guys could be ludicrous. This is definitely very worrisome. Definitely going to be very potent. Then especially against dwarves, can you imagine what the poor dwarves will do? And these guys are shielded themselves, so they don't have to worry too much about return fire. Then we do have these unique Doomfire Warlocks, Slaanisha's Harvesters. These guys get the Word of Pain bound spell and Soul Stealer spell. So this, I think, is much more potent than the vanilla variant. Word of Pain providing a great single target debuff. Soul Stealer, of course, a very powerful spell that will heal these guys up. So effectively, these guys have a charge of regen in a sense. They can heal themselves up a whole bunch. So definitely very potent. Knights of the Ebon Claw, Dread Knights that don't rampage. Like other cold ones. That's awesome. This will make these guys actually competitive if they're not ridiculously pricey. They do get Murderous Mastery, which isn't that good, but the lacking Rampage is going to be really good, I think, for these guys, because the base stats on Dread Knights aren't bad. These guys will be 9 veterancy Dread Knights, so honestly, these guys, I think, will be really pretty solid. Whether or not they're worth bringing, well, depends on cost. Chill of Sontar, a War Hydra, which does Frostbite, and which applies Frostbite with its Breath attack. Could be useful. Honestly, I'm not really too thrilled about this. War Hydra is kind of a mediocre unit to begin with, and usually you're not trying to prevent the units. Usually the units the War Hydra is fighting aren't the units you're trying to stop from escaping. They're usually units like Black Orcs that aren't going anywhere anyway. So I don't know. I don't think this is that useful. Then the Raven Heralds, which is pretty cool. Dark Riders mounted on Dark Pegasus. So a hypermobile light cav. That's not light cav really because it's a flyer, but if you get if it's 45 flyers, that's gonna be ridiculous. It might be a smaller unit size like the Swords of Chaos were for Archeon, but whatever the case might be, these guys should be pretty cool. They'll give the Dark Elves a better option for shutting down backlines than Harpies, and they'll also Dark Riders, and they'll also give you some better, I think, options for chasing down Flying Lords or forcing them to fight you and stuff like that. There's also, apparently, this is not all, the Druchii possess a dark and powerful weapon. When blood runs in rivers and the air is choked with death, the chains will break and this monster's secret will be unleashed. I don't know what this means. Basically just I guess teaser for those of you who might know. I honestly don't know, but could be cool. Could be something worth knowing about. I don't know. Share your thoughts about what you think this is. But hopping over to the we're gonna hop on over to the FAQ. Personally, I think that the Regiments of Renown seem to range from decent. There's only a few in there that I think are fairly useless, but most of them I think are decent to ridiculous, and we'll definitely, especially those Dark Shards with armor shield breaking. But I definitely think this is going to be a very strong lineup for the two factions. Well, like I said, the only real disappointing feature here is that we are not getting those two unique units. I was expecting the White Lions of Krace, or the White Lion Chariot, and I was expecting the Charybdis, and because I think they're rather easy units to implement and units that could really flesh out those two rosters a bit. And the fact that we're not getting them is a bit disappointing, but everything else here is pretty great. So hopping over to over to the FAQ. It does give you the exact spawn here for the Crone and for I'm not entirely sure why it's scrolled to the bottom here, but regardless, you get the same basic sort of info here. So they're just the usual sort of talking. Either way, you do get specifics here. So the Gaean Vale. So if you're want to look into the map and know exactly where you're going to be spawning, now you know. But otherwise, the info here is basically identical to what we get in the Steam forum. Similarly here for the Crone Hellebron, she starts in the Road of Skulls, so you know specifically where she spawns. But otherwise, it's basically the same info we had on Steam. So most of these I think are pretty self-explanatory. Legendary lores will be available in both Eye of Vortex and Mortal Empires. Not surprising. Norsca and the 30th Anniversary Regiments of Renown, the ones we got last, or that we got, what was last? That we got last year, and there was a whole bunch of uproar about. So we'll get those on the 31st. So everything on the May 31st, so at the very end of May. We'll finally get those Regiments of Renown, and we'll get Norsca. So if you haven't gotten these free Regiments of Renown, you do have to make a Total War Access account. Some people are complaining about this, but honestly, they're some pretty great Regiments of Renown. They're free, and as far as I'm aware, the Total War Access account doesn't send me any information or any annoying sort of spam on my email. So it's fine. I think honestly, unless you're really worried about handing out your information somewhere, uh, I honestly think it's pretty worthwhile. The legendary lords, uh, yeah, they're gonna be fighting for the vortex. Um, this is already kind of said here with the Eye of the Vortex. They're not doing anything crazy like the Tomb Kings currently are in the Vortex campaign. So pretty cool. There is some free content that's going to come alongside the DLC. We're going to get Alith Anar, which is a new free legendary lord coming alongside the Queen of the Crone, and a personal Shadow Walker unit. I don't know what the personal Shadow Walker unit implies. I don't know if that's going to be a. I assume that's going to be a hero because we are getting the Shadow Warriors with Alariel. There's going to be more info on him soon, so that should be pretty cool. And it should be interesting. Alathanar should be a pretty interesting legendary lord because currently we don't really have many ranged legendary lords. Orion is technically ranged. I'm trying to think, but honestly, Orion is the only legendary lord I'm aware of off the top of my head. I'm trying to think, running through like every lord right now in my head, but off the top of my head, Orion's the only legendary lord with range. Now, Alathanar being the Shadow King, I assume he will be a ranged unit. So, having another ranged legendary lord should be pretty awesome. That's something we don't really have much of currently, and could definitely be pretty awesome. So, a free update. So, there's going to be additional tweaks, fixes, and additions to the game. So, balance changes basically. As well as additions like the Dwarf Slayers and all that sort of stuff. And supposedly there's supposed to be full patch and update notes coming soon. Given that there's only 2 weeks till the release, it's probably going to be coming out over the following days, and I might post some videos to discuss it. So definitely should be interesting. And then any content post-release, yeah, the same little teaser that we saw before. So definitely some cool stuff. So basically on the 31st, we're going to be getting a huge dump of new stuff. We're going to be seeing balance changes, which should be great. Which we're going to be seeing Norska. We're going to be seeing the 30th anniversary Regiments of Renown. We're going to be seeing 3 new legendary lords. For those of you who buy the for those of you who buy the DLC, of course. But even if you don't, you get 1 free legendary lord. New units, new Regiments of Renown, all sorts of stuff. So just awesome. There's going to be a whole bunch of stuff. I'm definitely hyped for that. Like I said, the only little disappointment was that they left out units that I really thought that should have been in there. Only 2 units to boot, but that was really my only caveat or complaint. Otherwise, I do think it's pretty great. I do think this is looking good, and I'd love to hear what you guys think. Maybe you guys don't agree. Maybe you think it's crap. Maybe you think maybe there's actually some reason why they wouldn't include the white lions or something that I'm missing, or white lion chariots and the Charybdis that I'm missing. But regardless, feel free to post your own personal insight, your own info, your own thoughts and comments down below, and I'll do my best to respond as soon as I can. And yeah, it does look pretty. Does look pretty good. So I do hope you guys. It was a bit of a ranty, bit of a talky video, just kind of going over things and discussing what it could potentially mean. Putting down my thoughts and 2 cents. But I do hope you guys found it at least informative or interesting or fun maybe. And yeah, if you enjoyed it, be sure to leave a like and subscribe down below. If you have any comments and if you'd like to discuss, be sure to post down below and definitely post your thoughts. I'd love to hear them. I'd love to know what you're thinking about this. And as usual, guys, I do appreciate you all for watching, for staying through this video this long, a bit of a ranty video, and I'll see you all in the next one. Wyvern out.